Mark Mazzaferro, Public Information Officer for the City of Vacaville, and this is another episode of The Works with Vacaville Public Works Director Steve Hartwig. Steve, thank you for taking some time out of your day.
Good afternoon, Mark.
It's good to see you. We have a couple of topics to talk about that I think are kind of timely. I know in one part of the city we're doing some slurry sealing on some streets, and so let's talk a little bit about street maintenance, and then we'll jump on over to the fabulous Fairfield Vacaville Train Station project that's impacting our residents whether we like it or not. So let's start with slurry sealing.
Okay.
I know when I first got here we were doing lots of slurry sealing, and it's hard to say that fast 3 times, but and then the program stopped. Then we kind of looked for alternative ways to keep our streets in good shape, but it's back. We're back slurry sealing, and in fact we did a whole southeastern corner of the city recently. So why don't you tell us about what slurry sealing is, why we started, why we stopped, it's back now. Give us the rundown.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that. The slurry seal is a preventative maintenance treatment. It's a seal coat. It's a mixture of sand and oil and a few other things, polymers that we put in there to try and make it last longer. It seals the cracks in the road so that when we actually do get rain again, the rain and the water won't penetrate the road surface, because as most folks know, our soils in Vacaville have a fair amount of clay in them, and when clay gets wet, it swells and expands and then breaks the road up even more. Mm-hmm. So the idea is to keep the water from penetrating down into the road base. So these seal coats allow us to preserve a road that's still in pretty good shape, but prevent it from going over the cliff and becoming a road that has to get reconstructed.
So it's kind of preventive maintenance on roads that are still worth saving.
Exactly. It's a preventative maintenance treatment, probably one of the best ones that we have right now to take care of our roadways. Mm-hmm. Crack sealing is another one, but it's a lot more labor intensive, and you have to hit every crack in order to truly prevent the water from getting in. We
did some crack sealing before you got here, and I remember Sean Cunningham, the deputy director, presented that info at a council meeting. He says, well, we're going to do this because at the very least it'll seal the cracks, but you're going to have a bunch of streets with all kinds of goofy patterns on it, and we do have it in some neighborhoods, but it's cheaper to do that as opposed to let's let it go and rebuild the whole street. Right. 2 or 3 years down the road, right?
Right. And in fact, the slurry sealing, or excuse me, the crack sealing of local streets is really not very effective. It's those roads it's easier to put that seal coat and cost effective to do it. Mm-hmm. What we crack seal is our larger roadways, because a slurry seal on a larger road doesn't typically work too well on our arterial roads. Mm-hmm. We normally have to do an asphalt overlay of those and actually get a full lift of pavement on it. But those, in the interim, sealing up the cracks saves our arterial roadways and allows them to function. So we will see some arterials with squiggly black lines on them, and that's filling in the cracks so we keep the water out of those roads.
Okay, so basically slurry sealing is for like neighborhoods, low traffic streets, streets that are going to get a lot of heavy equipment on them, those kinds of places.
Right, the places where you don't have a lot of big vehicle movement, because slurries are thin. They don't last if we put them on heavier use roads. Right. One of the treatments that we've used successfully so far on our arterial roads has been what's called a bonded wearing course, and it's a real thin asphalt overlay of about 1 inch, but we put down a asphaltic coating first, and then the hot asphalt goes on top of that, and it sort of heat seals the roadway, and it's cheaper than a 2 or 3 inch overlay. So that has been an effective treatment for our bigger roads.
Oh, okay, cool. So generally speaking, what kind of condition are the roads in Vacaville in? Are they in pretty good shape? I know there's a rating that comes out every 2 or 3 years or every year, and you're either good, whatever. How would you characterize our streets?
Well, we are a 69 right now on a scale of 0 to 100, mm-hmm. and that's right about at the cusp of good and fair. Mm-hmm. 70 and above is good, and just below 70 is fair, and so we're hovering right in that fair range. Mm-hmm. With the amount of need we have, though, the roads we should be resurfacing or slurry sealing or crack sealing or repairing, we don't have the budget that covers the level of effort that the system has helped us decide we should be doing in order to keep the streets in a good condition. Mm-hmm. So the problem that we have is that while we have done a pretty significant slurry seal program this summer, we are anticipating a funding drop of about $600,000 this coming year.
Okay, and we talked about this earlier. Where does that funding come from?
That's state gas tax. It's the money that people pay at the pump when they buy gasoline. Unfortunately, we have vehicles now that use the road that aren't paying any of that. Our electric vehicles don't pay anything to support the maintenance of the roadways, and then some of the other vehicles don't really pay an equivalent share to cover it. While heavy trucks do pay a higher tax than most car owners, it's really not enough to cover the level of damage that large trucks cause to the roadway.
And then you have the drop in the price of gas.
Right.
That affects the amount of sales tax we get on the gas tax, because it's based on a percentage of sales per gallon, isn't it? The price per gallon?
That component of the gas tax, and there's 4 different pieces to it that do make up the gas tax. That particular component is the one that is dropping. The price of gas from about a year and a half ago to now has dropped, and so our projection of what we're going to be bringing in is going down from 2.7 million per year to about 2.1 million.
Enough about slurry sealing. I think we've beaten that one literally into the roadway. A little pun there. But so let's talk about the train station, because it was coming down the road. It was going to be here, and then it got put off for a year, and then I think it got put off for another year. But and when I say got put off, I'm talking about the closure of Peabody Road to build the overpass. Give us a brief history of how we got to where we are today on the train station, and then let's talk about where we're at right now.
Well, as you mentioned, it was sort of programmed to start and close the road, and it did get delayed basically 2 years, one of which was to secure some additional funding. The prices had gone up, the estimates had increased. As the economy started to recover, so did the prices of construction. In the meantime, Fairfield had been doing the utility relocation, so that work was taken care of so that all the utilities that would be in the way of the new overpass and all of the foundations that have to get drilled into the ground, all the utilities had been relocated, which make the ability for the contractor to get that overpass put in and meet that timeline of 1 school year looks to be well on schedule.
Oh, well, that's good news, because I know I went to some of the community meetings, and the emotions were all over the place. Some people had no problem. People with kids in school were very concerned. People with businesses had some issues, but any project of this magnitude, there's going to be impacts, and you try to minimize them as much as you can, which is why they went with the let's close the roadway for a year versus let's keep it open and take anywhere from 1.5 years to 2 years to do the project. Let's just get it done, move on. So where are we at now? I mean, I guess once the overpass is done, then the train station project starts getting built, or how does that work?
They are working on both components at the same time, but there's sort of a priority of things that had to occur. The underpass at the train station itself, which allows people to access the center platform, the southerly half of that had to get constructed first because the new tracks had to be built over the top of that, and that had to happen basically about the time that Peabody Road closed. They had to get the tracks realigned so that they could start building the overpass. So it was kind of a sequence of things that had to happen in a certain order. That half of the underpass is built, the new track is over the top, Peabody Road's closed. The foundation in 2 or 3 of the locations along the overpass structure have been drilled. People will start seeing columns going up into the air. They'll see the large mounds of dirt that they're piling up as the approaches are built. And so it is definitely progressing, and they are making good progress on it.
So once this overpass is built, is that going to improve the flow through there from the way it was before, or is it just going to go back to how it was?
No, it should improve it quite a bit. That was a 2-lane section of Peabody Road. It's going to be striped for 4 lanes when they open it up, but it's wide enough to ultimately make the 6-lane roadway, which is what the long-range plan is. So it will open that up. It will build the improvements on both sides, so there'll be a sidewalk that people can actually use if they want to go along Peabody, but they'll also be able to use the underpass at the train station if they're going, say, from the Gold Ridge side of Fairfield to the school districts, the Vanden High School, Golden Hills, and Center Elementary.
So I get this question occasionally. How come it's called the Fairfield Vacaville Train Station when clearly it's in Fairfield?
The 2 cities jointly looked for a location to put a train station. It had, my understanding of the history, it had a number of options that were looked at. This one turned out to be, I guess, the most viable because of the proximity to where there was still going to be development in Fairfield, and allowed them to kind of gear that development to work with the train station as best it could, so that you could have people that wanted to have that little higher density urban feel and the ability to get on a commuter train station train and be able to go to either the San Francisco Bay Area or Sacramento, where a lot of the job centers are.
Well, it's good to hear that it's pretty much on schedule, maybe even a little bit ahead of schedule. Is that fair
Maybe,
to say?
maybe even a little. I'm going to do a little more checking to see where we're at, and in another installment we
All
can
right.
talk about where it's at.
Yeah, but we don't want to overpromise anything, because that's the last thing
Yes.
we want to do is say, oh, they're ahead of schedule, then tomorrow we get the information that, hey, we're 6 months behind. So
Right.
let's not do this. But the nice weather's got to help, which is why
Yeah.
they started in the summer anyway, right?
Right, right.
Take advantage of good weather. Not that it's rained lately, but anyway. Well, that's great. That's good information both on the slurry seal and on the train station. Anything else happening in Public Works that you want to discuss?
Well, just a little more, I think, on the train station and the detour. I think some of our citizens have experienced that, those that still have to drive students down there because of sports or after-school activities. The detour that they're using does seem to be working okay. There hasn't been any significant incidents. No calls to Vacaville regarding issues, and Fairfield, from my understanding, has only received a handful of calls about issues related to that. It does take longer, but people are doing a good job of using that detour and not getting out of hand, and it's working out fairly well right now. And the students that are going down to those schools in Travis Unified District, if you can get them on the bus, that's working best, because the bus is allowed to use that emergency vehicle access.
I was just going to say, and that was my next comment, was going to be the public safety still has access to that roadway, right?
Yes.
So any issues related to public safety, and apparently the school buses can use it too.
Right.
So that's gotta help, I mean, certainly having the bus access, put your kid on the bus, right?
Right.
So.
Yeah, and then we're looking forward to sort of the school district's estimate in the first, say, couple of months of how many people they've been able to add to the bus system to be able to get them across there, which helps as well. That any student that's on the bus, and Travis Unified can support this. I'm not making it up. Any student on the bus is considered on time if they're on the bus, even if the bus happens to get delayed for some reason.
Sure. Well, that's great information, Steve, on the train station project. And if you want to find out more about the Fairfield Vacaville Train Station, go to our website, cityofvacaville.com, and under departments, under Public Works, there's going to be a link right there. Just click on that, and it'll take you right to a website that has all the updates and other information regarding this project. So, Steve, thank you for taking some time out of your day.
Thanks, Mark.
And thank you for watching this episode of The Works with Public Works Director Steve Hartwig.